What's up, everybody? It's me, Blackgirlmarvel, back for day 20 of my 31 days of reviews featuring Terminator 3 Rise of the Machine. Now, this is going to be spoiled as well. Also, I noted that today is the 21st, but your girl was out, and I thought I would be back in time enough to do this, and I wasn't. So, you're going to get two in one day. How lucky are you? As always, if you don't want to be spoiled, please go watch Terminator 3 and then come back and talk to me in the chats, in the comments. I don't know what I was trying to say, but anyway, listen. So Terminator 3 came out, I don't know when. I'm not about to go look either, and I'm sorry about that. I know I usually do that, but I'm not this time. It's like midnight and I'm kind of tired. But Terminator 3 takes place 10 years after Terminator 2. We see John Connor as an older young man, I guess I'll say, because I think he was 14 in Terminator 2, and then 10 years later he'll be 24. Shout out to Matt. And we're seeing that John is having a rough go of it. He's pretty much like a nomad. He's pretty much, he's staying off the grid. He doesn't have a cell phone. He's kind of traumatized, I would say, from the events of T2 and probably, living with like his mom and all the things that had happened. Also losing like his father figure in the T-800. But we always know that Skynet is never done. So they decided to send a more advanced android, cyborg, whatever you want to call them, back to his present and I like this part of the plot, that it wasn't like he's the primary target, but to be killed, obviously. But they also send her back. It's a female Terminator this time. Send her back to kill all his lieutenants so that these things in the future wouldn't happen. During this time, they sent a reprogrammed 850, because remember the T-800 died in T2, so now we have the T-850, which I'm like, I'm gonna need y'all to find some more advanced cyborgs, androids, because they keep putting Arnold up against these more significant ones, but but Arnold still wins. That says a lot about technology. Sometimes it's better to have the old than it is to have the new, but I don't. So once again, John Connor finds himself on the run from a Terminator. Mind you, he meets up with this chick named Catherine Brewer, who he went to school with, but in the 8th grade, he had to skedaddle because, he was about to die and all that kind of stuff. And the stuff about his foster parents came out, and they were cool, but then they wasn't, and now they're adults meeting again. We find out that in the future, not only is she his second in command, she's also his wife, and they have kids that take over the resistance once they're done. It was Kate or Catherine, they call her Kate. It was Kate who reprogrammed the 850, because the 850 like snuck in, not really snuck, but because he looked just like the 800, which we find out on this one, they manufactured a lot of the Arnold Schwarzenegger versions of the Terminator. And because he looked like that version, I think John let his guard down a little bit, and this Terminator, the 850, was sent to kill him. And once he died, Catherine reprogrammed him to, essentially it was T2. It was like they took T1 and T2 and made T3. That's literally what it was, because they sent this one back to protect not only John, but also Catherine, but he would only take Catherine's orders. So it's very interesting. I like that aspect of it. And I liked another thing too. At the end of the movie, this is like one of my favorite things about the whole movie. At the end of the movie, they lost. The humans lost this round. So, because like in the first one, usually it was like, in the first one, they kind of lost. The machines kind of lost. In the second one, they really lost. And then in this one, they kind of won, because Judgment Day happened and only got postponed. And at the end, it was John Connor taking his rightful place as like advocate for the human race, essentially. This movie wasn't great. It wasn't great at all. It was slightly good. There's a lot in it that I'm just kind of like, I wish they would have went a different route of it. To me, it just comes down to like maybe like the writing of the time. I'm gonna always ride for Claire Danes. Claire Danes played Catherine Brewer. I'm gonna always ride for Claire Danes because she's a part of my 90s childhood. Also, she's actually a phenomenal actress, which love to see her in some more stuff, and maybe I should just dig into the stuff I haven't seen, because she's great. Nick Stahl for me is a really good actor, honestly. He's like, the older he's getting, the more he's looking like Mark Hamill a little bit. But I also see that they kind of like copied Nick Stahl's look and like gave it to Dane DeHaan, and I was just like, they the same person. All in all, this was an okay Terminator film, but I feel like it should have been the next movie, like I'm just gonna call these like T1, T2, T3, T4, stuff like that. I would want T4 to not be so far in the future, but take place maybe like a year or so after T3. Mind you, never seen T4, so it could quite possibly take place a year or two afterwards, and it probably does, but I'm not sure. But if it does, that's kind of smart, because the way that they left this one off, I wanted more, right? It seemed the way that all the Terminators died. The female Terminator was played by Christiana Loken. I believe that's probably pronounced her. If you needed to cast a woman with a stern-looking face and she's running to kill you, you cast the best one. Not only to me is she like a sci-fi queen who doesn't really get enough attention because she's been in a lot of sci-fi stuff. She nailed this part to me. She nailed this. She was not only giving me like Arnold from the first one, she was giving me Robert Patrick from the second one. So I felt like she nailed this. And I like the fact that they kind of have like female Terminators kind of like going forward in some of the other movies, because it's just fun. I mean, when I'm not talking, people think I'm mean anyway, and I'm pretty sure they see that about all women. So to have these women kind of be Terminators, I'm here for it. This film had some great moments, but overall for me, it was kind of like I'm just still not understanding why the robot is like, okay, the robot Skynet is supposed to be like this super fast learning computer, right? But it still ain't figured out how to kill John Connor. I mean, eventually it did, but like it still didn't figure out how to kill John Connor. It's not realizing that it's writing its own future by sending Terminators to go back to do these things. To me, that's the most fascinating part about watching these films in succession now, is that I'm kind of connecting dots that I didn't have because I didn't see some of these films, and then I would like pop in and pop out of the series. So, but essentially, like what they say, like fate is the one that we make, and we make our own, the future is up to us, and the future is ours, and all this type of stuff that they... Skynet still hasn't caught on to the fact that, hey, every time I send one of these Terminators back, not only do they send a Terminator, but nothing changes. John Connor still becomes John Connor. He still does a revolution or revolt, whatever you want to call it. And eventually Skynet loses in the future. But if they would stop sending people, these things would never happen, and Skynet could just go rule the land. But I guess, as always, with like machines, there will always be some kind of flaw. And I know I'm talking on a machine, sitting in a machine. I love y'all. Y'all are some of my favorite things to have. I respect you heavily. I'm just talking in the sense of like this movie. No disrespect. But yeah, Skynet a little dumb. Skynet little... But also think about it too. It's a machine made by man, so there's going to be gaps somewhere. Even though it's a supercomputer and it works fast and it works smart, it's not that smart. But I do think it gets smart in Genesis, but I don't remember Genesis like that. But we'll get there. Overall, if I had to rate this film, I would probably give this film like a 6 out of 10, maybe 5.5 out of 10. It's not my favorite. It's not T1, and it's definitely not T2. It's okay. I'm just a little disappointed by John Connor, if I'm being totally honest. I like that we got a story of him eventually becoming what his mother is pretty much taught him to be. I'm happy that we kind of saw his transition from being like, I don't want to be a part of this, I don't want to be this leader, I don't want to be like this savior, to finally taking his place next to Catherine to be like what the future has destined him to be. But me personally, I didn't need that. I didn't need that. What you saw in T2 when he was like 14, he already had like these skills. He was already clever. You didn't see any of this in T3. That was very disappointing for me. You didn't see any of the things that Sarah has taught him in T3. And that was like a big disappointment for me. It's like, so what were you doing this whole time? You were just laying low. You weren't preparing. Yo mama is Sarah Connor. I would have thought that you would have prepared like she did. I would have thought that you would have... I don't know, maybe not been as like crazy to go blow up like, you know, like buildings, and my brain glitched for a second. But I just thought he would just be more involved, right? I thought he would just, even if he was wanted to keep low, he just wanted to do some odd jobs, stuff like that, I thought he would still be like just a little bit more present. Like he would be into technology, he would be learning stuff. Like, I don't know, because we saw him in T2 like pretty much, you know, crack a ATM with a card reader. Like, come on, like these are skills that he should have had in T3, but he just didn't have them, and I was very, very, very disappointed. But as always, go check out T3. Come back and let me know what you thought about it. I'll be back later with maybe a review about like Chainsaw Man or maybe Echo. I don't know which one right now. As always, follow your girl on all social media. And if you want to see me go a little bit deeper and talk about some of the things I didn't like, join me tomorrow on The Real Study, YouTube and Twitch for our discussion of T3 and T4.